Boston, we're back. This is Urban Empowerment Today on WBCA LP 102.9 FM. I'm your host and producer, Deborah Shariff, bringing you the conversations that matter, uplifting the voices that inspire, and empowering the change makers in our community. After 4 years away, I missed you guys. We're here to tackle the real issues, break down barriers, and build the future we deserve. The movement starts now. The power is ours. Are you ready, Boston? Let's go. And welcome to Urban Empowerment Today. I'm Deborah Shariff. Tonight, fam, we're going to step into the pages of history. Not the history you'll find in school books, but the hidden, the silence, the overlooked. Picture it, a Jamaican nurse born in 1805, defying an empire's rejection to heal soldiers on the battlefield. A chemist in 1915, just 23 years old, discovering the first real cure for leprosy. A mathematician in segregated America who launched men into space with the power of her mind. A surgeon in Harlem who declared that sight is a human right and then built the tool to give it back. These women were not supposed to succeed. Their birth decades marked by slavery, Jim Crow, segregation, and sexism were stacked against them. And yet they rose. Tonight on Urban Empowerment Today, we honor them. The healers, the builders, the inventors, the visionaries, Black women whose courage lit the way for all of us. This is not just history. This is power. This is legacy. And this is our story. So let me start with Dr. Patricia Bath, who was born in 1942 in Harlem, New York. Now picture Harlem in the 1940s, a little girl with sharp, curious eyes. Patricia Bath watched as people in her community lost their sight, many from diseases that went untreated. She asked a few questions, dared. Why do people go blind twice as often as whites? Her answer was both scientific and revolutionary. In 1986, she invented the laser phaco probe, a device that used lasers to remove cataracts. Her tool restored sight to millions around the world. But Patricia didn't stop there. She declared that sight is a human right. She founded the American Institution for the Prevention of Blindness in 1976, making mobile eye clinics possible. And she shattered barriers herself, the first Black resident in an ophthalmology at NYU, the first woman to lead a U.S. ophthalmology training program, and the first Black woman doctor to receive a U.S. medical patent. Patricia Bath's story spans the civil rights era to the 21st century, proving that vision, both literal and figuratively, can transform the world. Say her name, Dr. Patricia Bath. Amazing woman, amazing. Next up, we have Annie Turnbow Malone. She was born in 1869 in Metropolis, Illinois. She was born in Chicago, Illinois. In the 1870s, a decade just after the Civil War, when Black Americans were carving lives out of freedom's fragile promise. From this world, rose Annie Turbo Malone, the daughter of formerly enslaved people. By the early 1900s, Annie had become a chemist, experimenting with formulas that would transform black hair. Out of her bottles came an empire, the Poro Company, and later Poro College, a grand complex in St. Louis complete with classrooms, laboratories, a theater, and dormitories. Imagine the sight. Hundreds of young black women in crisp uniforms learning business skills, earning wages, and carrying themselves with dignity. Annie built more than a company. She built an army of entrepreneurs. By the 1920s, she was just one of the first black millionaires in America. She even mentored Madam C.J. Walker, gave generously to orphanages, and became a beacon of philanthropy. Annie Turnbo Malone's life stretched across Reconstruction, the Jim Crow era, and into the dawn of the Civil Rights Movement. And through it all, she proved that beauty and enterprise could mean freedom. So let's say her name, Annie Turnbo Malone. These women I am so excited to bring these women to you. I'm just blown away reading their bios, knowing what they accomplished. And this was back in the day. Now just think about it. This is 2025. What is our excuse, right? Next woman, Bessie Blunt Griffin. She was born in 1914 in Hickory, Virginia. The year was 1914 in the segregated South. From this world of limits came Bessie Blunt Griffin, a woman who refused to be defined by anyone's boxes. As World War II ended, wounded soldiers returned home. Some were missing limbs, unable to feed themselves. Bessie, working as a physical therapist, couldn't bear to see men stripped of their dignity. So she built a device, a tube connected to a tray of food. With just a bite, the machine delivered nourishment. You know, when I read these things and I think about the tubes that we have currently, I had no idea that it was a black woman that made it happen. America, they dismissed her, but France said yes and adopted her invention. Still unsatisfied, Bessie reinvented herself. She trained as a forensic scientist, mastering handwriting analysis and work cases for law enforcement. She even studied at Scotland Yard, a rare honor for an African-American woman in her time. Her life stretched nearly a century, and with each reinvention, she sent a clear message. Black women can create, heal, and investigate. They can do it all. So, come on, say her name. Bessie Blunt Griffin. These women are amazing. All right, here's our next one. I mean, it gets even more amazing, right? Alice Augusta Ball, born in 1892 in Seattle, Washington. The 1890s, Jim Crow tightened its grip on America, yet a young woman in Seattle chased knowledge with relentless focus. Alice Augusta Ball became the first black graduate student at the University of Hawaii. And at just 23 years old, are you here listening? 23 years old, she solved one of medicine's oldest puzzles, leprosy. Hansen's disease had plagued humanity for centuries. Treatments were harsh and ineffective. Alice found a way to transform the thick, bitter oil into an injectable solution that actually worked. The ball method became the first widely effective treatment for leprosy, freeing patients from forced exile. Tragically, Alice died in 1916, just 4 years after her discovery. Her brilliance cut short. For decades, her contribution was nearly erased. But today, her name is spoken with honor. Alice Ball lived only 24 years, but in that short span, she gave hope to thousands and left a legacy larger than her years. And I just want to mention, if some of you out there are Catholics, I know I, was raised a Catholic, and I remember having the nuns read to me about the leprosy colonies. And I thought it was so sad. And they even had pictures of people that had leprosy that, were all bandaged up in these colonies. So to find out that a young sister, only 23 years old, had discovered a cure for leprosy, this blows my mind. So, okay, fam, say her name, Alice Augusta Ball. It's just unbelievable. And here we go with our next Black woman. I just call it Black brilliance, wouldn't you? So you're listening. If anyone is tuning in, this is Deborah Shariff with Urban Empowerment Today. You're listening to WBCA LP 102.9 FM Boston, and we're talking about Black brilliance and Black women. All right, our next one, Mildred Blount. She was born in 1907 in Enterton, North Carolina. She was born in the South where opportunities for Black women were scarce. Mildred Blount found her gift in fashion. By the 1930s, she was designing hats for Hollywood's golden age. Her creations appeared in Gone with the Wind and on the heads of icons like Marian Anderson, Joan Crawford, and Lena Horne. In 1948, she made history as the first Black designer to exhibit at the New York World's Fair. Picture the elegance, the velvet brims, the silk veils, the feathers arched like poetry. Mildred stitched her way into history, proving that artistry could be both weapon and crown. Oh my goodness. And, if I was doing this visually, you should see the hats and the actresses and the iconic women that wore her designs. And little did I know, when I was watching Gone with the Wind or watching some Lena Horne or Joan Crawford, little did I know that the sister, let's say her name again, right? Mildred Blount. That's Mildred Blount. Wow. I'm again, I know it, I might sound repetitive, but there's just something about reliving and rereading and revisiting these Black women's history, because I've said this before in circles with folks that know me, that I know. And for some of you that know, or if you don't know, I'm a professor. And I've studied my whole life Black history and felt that I was an expert. But I have to give some credit to the young man who I actually borrowed some of his research. And that is a young man who is on TikTok. And his name is Ty, and he has Black Chronicles, has over 260 videos dedicated to unknown, unsung Black heroes worldwide, not just in the U.S., but worldwide. And I went on his YouTube channel, And I was just blown away. And I borrowed some of his names because here I am. I am a tenured professor with many years in studying Black history. And this young man from New Jersey, that's where he's from, Ty, Black Chronicles, if you want to check him out, he's on social media, he's on YouTube, he's on TikTok. But I was just blown away. I contacted him and I took some of his master classes because I just wanted to sit at the feet of this young genius who's I think he's in his early 30s, mid 30s. So I just want to let you know with these hidden truths. I know some of you probably have heard of Patricia Bath. That's the only iconic Black brilliant woman that I have heard of. But aside from all the rest, 90%, 95% of them, I have never heard of. And I've never known their stories. And their stories are just absolutely riveting, amazing, unbelievable. So let's continue on. And again, Ty, a shout out to this young man, Black Chronicles. Check him out on social media. He has over 260 videos of Black brilliant people that you probably have never heard of. And you have to vet your sources. And I did. Every one of his stories, because, I teach journalism. So I make sure I vet his stories and vet the names. And all of it is just absolutely amazing. So let's get into our next Black brilliant woman. Her name is Mary Seacole. She was born in 1805 in Kingston, Jamaica. The early 1800s, Kingston, Jamaica, a little girl named Mary Seacole watched her mother mix herbs and medicines, learning the art of healing. When the Crimean War broke out, she traveled to London, offering her services as a nurse. Rejected because of her race, she funded her own passage, honey, and built the British, you don't make this stuff up, and built the British Hotel near the battlefield. There, she cared for sick and wounded soldiers under fire, earning the name Mother Seacole. Her autobiography, Wonderful Adventures of Mrs. Seacole in Many Lands, makes her one of the first Black women to publish her life story. She lived through slavery's abolition and the Victorian age, her courage spanning empires and continents. And there's more to her story, how she actually built this particular hotel, because many of the people who the hospital workers and, all of the folks that take care of the medical providers that take care of the wounded in war, they didn't want to deal with Black soldiers. And she did. As usual, there's a Black woman behind each story. But again, we got to say this sister's name, born on Kingston, Jamaica. Say her name, Mary Seacole. All right, our next iconic Black brilliant woman, Katherine Johnson. She was born in 1918, in White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia. In 1918, just as World War ended, Katherine Johnson was born into a segregated world. But numbers were her language. And by the 1950s, she was part of NASA's team of human computers. It was Katherine's math, that calculated the flight path for John Glenn's 1962 orbit. Glenn himself refused to fly unless Katherine checked the numbers. Her equations later guided Apollo missions to the moon. She lived more than a century, passing in 2020. We just lost this Black brilliant woman. 5 years ago, long enough to see her story celebrated in the movie, and I'm sure you all have probably seen this movie, Hidden Figures. Katherine Johnson's life proves that brilliance once hidden can light the world. And parents, if you are listening to this broadcast, and again, I'm Deborah Shariff. This is WBCA LP 102.9 FM Boston. If you are listening, share these stories, and I'm sure that they possibly have these books. And I'm just going to give a rundown where you can actually find some of these iconic Black brilliant women. But it's really important to let your daughters and sons know of these brilliant women and what they invented and what they went through. It's just, for me, it's just unbelievable. And it's amazing. It is absolutely amazing. Oh, I just love reading these stories. Our next iconic Black brilliant woman is Eunice Hunton Carter. So I'll say Eunice, Hunton Carter. And she was born in 1899 in Atlanta, Georgia. The turn of the century in 1899, in Atlanta, a daughter was born into a family committed to justice. By the 1930s, she had become one of the first Black women prosecutors in New York. In smoky courtrooms, she traced prostitution rackets straight to mob boss Lucky Luciano. Her strategy brought him down. Can you imagine a sister brought down a Lucky Luciano? How many movies have you seen about Lucky Luciano? Lucky Luciano. How many movies have you seen? Of course, a lot. And a Black woman brought her down, but I bet you they didn't show that in the movies, right? Of course not. At a time when Black women were silenced, Eunice's voice rang through the court. She lived through the Harlem Renaissance, Jim Crow, and into the Civil Rights era. Always a fighter for justice. Okay, let's say her name. The sister who brought down Lucky Luciano, Eunice Hunton Carter. Okay. All right, the next one is a group of Black women. I was really stoked when I discovered this story, which was recently, and had no knowledge of it prior, but it just sort of blew my mind, and I think it's going to blow yours. The Black Angel Nurses, okay? They were active during the 1940s all the way through the 1960s. The 1940s, tuberculosis swept across America, and the country faced a dire nursing shortage. A call went out. From the segregated South came a group of Black women, highly trained yet barred from hospitals at home. They traveled north to Iowa and became known as the Black Angels. In crisp white uniforms, they worked endless hours in tuberculosis wards, saving lives even as they were forced to live in segregated housing. Patients remembered their compassion long after they were healed. Their courage spanned decades from World War II through the Civil Rights Movement, and their story is finally honored in Mario Somalio's book, The Black Angels. This is unbelievable. And, TB or tuberculosis was really a disease that I remember threatened people's lives. And just to think that these women were so courageous, and that's why they were called the Black Angels. So let's say their names, the Black Angel Nurses. Unbelievable, unbelievable. And, I just wanted to mention here that as I read about all of these women, and just to repeat it, I'm just thinking about it, Dr. Patricia Bath, Annie Turnbow Malone, Bessie Blunt Griffin, Alice Ball, these women, and it goes on in terms of their Black brilliance. But one thing that I think is really important is to make sure that you're passing these stories on to your loved ones. I mean, it's really important. And just to kind of give you a couple of references, if you have an interest in picking up these stories for yourself and vetting this information, for Dr. Patricia Bath, her book is The Doctor with an Eye for Eyes by Julia Finley Mosca. And also, just pick up some of the information in a library, to read about these people. Annie Turnbow Malone, The Untold Story of Annie Turnbow Malone, her hair care millionaire. Bessie Blunt Griffin, there's nothing widely published about her, but you can actually go to free sources like the Virginia Changemaker site and the Smithsonian article, Library of Virginia Education. I could go on, but if you do have an interest and you want to hear more about these Black, brilliant, iconic women, then you certainly can email me at urbanempowerment@gmail.com. Again, that's urbanempowerment@gmail.com. And I'd be more than happy, at your request, if you have some other iconic Black brilliant folks that you want to share their story with, I'd be more than happy to be a part of providing you with that information. So, fam, tonight we've walked with giants, women born in centuries apart, decades apart, yet connected by the same fire. Mary Seacole, 1805. Patricia Bath, 1942. Katherine Johnson, 1918. Annie Malone in the 1870s. Alice Ball, in 1892. Eunice Carter, in 1899. And Bessie Blunt Griffin, 1914. And Mildred Blunt in 1907. And the Black Angel Nurses in the 1940s. Unbelievable. So happy to bring these women to you, to your attention. This is Urban Empowerment Today. I'm your host, Deborah Shariff. Family, keep their names alive because we speak their names. We rise with them. It's been a pleasure. You're listening to WBCA LP 102.9 FM Boston. And again, this is Urban Empowerment Today. Until next time.